think, an interesting idea, but, so don't hate me, but the idea is basically that developers are some nodes, and then you would need some super nodes, because you can never guarantee that enough developers are there to share the code. These are connected in some way, and what I think is cool is the design is resilient, right? So if a node goes down, you still have access to everything. It's independent, you're not dependent on some company like GitHub or on Nicolas Peton to keep Smalltalk up running. And you don't have to care about where the thing is hosted, right? You just have your, I don't know, your interface and just say, okay, I want that package and I don't care where it comes from. Now, why I think this is not such a good idea is it's not visible. So basically you hide the whole thing again. It's like the screen source was sort of open, but if you use a different protocol than HTTP and put a different front end on it, then it's gone. And it's not really searchable unless, yeah. And, well, this is debatable, but it has to be maintained by the community, right? So there would be people who would need to be willing to put up supernodes. Another thought I had when I was discussing with Martin Diaz was, so he's building Epicea, and Epicea is, some people think that it should replace the current changes file, right? So how, if we have that and we have Git as a backend, can we somehow have the metadata that describes changes to versions between commits, right? So the stuff that is in the changes file now, but not in the Monticello commit. So this is just a thought how that could look like. I'm not saying this is a good idea. They could have a commit with a tree, so this is just a normal thing, and a blob would be like the print on it. Now, what you could do is you could have a special reference point to a tree somewhere, and that tree would simply point to the different revisions of that method across time, independently of commits. So Git is very versatile. I mean, you cannot use Git to visualize this. You would have to build special tools, right? So there's only a few people who will ever see that. But I mean, on the other hand, you could collect research data, and for some people this is very important, apparently. I don't know. It's worth a thought, I think. You get this really fine-grained history. Sometimes you're really happy if you can see what the developer did and why the heck did he do that change, right? And if you don't want to, you don't have to look at it. Okay. So I'm going to finish now. We've come a long way, but there's a big but, there's still a long way to go. So people come to me and ask, well, when are you ready? When can we throw Monticello out? And I always say, well, look, I'm just doing this one thing, and it's a huge amount of work to do anything about version control. It's just, don't skip ahead, right? So the cool thing is we would have a choice of a storage backend, and we would get better modularity, which will allow us to change stuff when the time is right. And we can use existing solutions such as Git or Mercurial or whatever. And one important point, I think, is to take the load off the community, because we are not that many people. So Git plus abstractions are just the first step. And one thing I also want to point out, Git is not just there for revision control or Smalltalk code, but people use Git for all kinds of stuff. So you want to have access to the Git repository, like I showed you in the browser, in the code browser, and do stuff to your repository. So very quickly, thank you Esteban for the VM, Martin Diaz for the discussion, Stefan Lucas for pushing me to the talk, and Dale Hendricks for the version control stuff, and file tree and everything else, and Camilo Bruni, who sadly quit the community, but he was a great help and everything. Any questions? Yes?
So when do you go through
decision anyway.
You are right.
Okay, when can we use your stuff for drawing out?
Thank you. That was very nice.
Max, I don't get the topological difference between Monticello and your vision. And I see it, you can put those Monticello MCZs anywhere, and it is decentralized, and you have merging tools in the image. So I really don't understand the difference.
Yeah, okay, you're right, you could use MCZ files. That's one.
Well, let's forget MCZ files, because MCZ files are arguably broken or not, right? And you could serialize to the source that's in there, right? Or you could serialize to fuel, or you could serialize to XML, or whatever. But what one does is put these things somewhere, right? Now I understand that there's a fragility in the use of file names to hold version information, essentially because the UI doesn't enforce conventions and stupid things like lack of click to focus means I've constructed things that look like EEM, VM maker, blah, right? Because I just typed it in the wrong place, right? But that's not really its fault. That's a bug. So my use of Monticello is, okay, there's some repositories out there that I can kind of trust, and then there's my package cache, and Newsweek fucking deletes it whenever I bootstrap, But I can put these things somewhere, so I don't get, other than Git is popular, and so if you put out this incomprehensible source code in Git, somehow magically people will come visit. I just don't get it.
You're right, probably in some way.
It's not helping me. Yeah, I mean,
I love it.
I love being right. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
But I'm not saying Git is the ultimate solution, and I'm not saying we need to use Git and Git is the only thing and Monticello is bad or whatever. But Git is a new thing and it's come along, and so I'm doing these findings anyways. And people, it's not me who says Monticello is bad, but apparently people feel that there needs to be, or should be some change.
I do want to say, there's parts of Monticello that survive through file trees, survive through this. And then from my perspective, it's the good stuff of Monticello. The bad stuff is more of an SCM than it is, So there's, throwing out Monticello has not been, any of the, that's not been the goal of this. This is opening up Git, the capabilities of Git, and Git and GitHub is superior to anything we have today. Anything we could build, that's something different, anything we have today. But it's not, Monticello is bad. It really isn't Monticello is bad, all right? There are some better things that we can do with SCM and with that availability, so. It's wrong to be, poking at Monticello that way.
Yeah.
In my point of view, the most important thing is being able to allocate resources of this small community to more important things than what already can be done in our computer. That's why I want to use it.
Making this work is probably as much work as maintaining it, so.
But we should.
Right now we have to maintain Monticello, small or speed source or whatever. It consumes resources, and we are always behind what they are doing in matter of version pointer and tools for that. Why? Because we are not so much, and we have more important things to do.
And it's all the other artifacts, right? There's the images, the text files,
Yes.
all these other things that, and we can diff them on GitHub now. It's like it's all kind of keeps moving on.
But as far as I understood talking, this is not about an or. It's not an either or. It's about options.
Yeah, I never said.
When you're in engineering, when you have an engineering problem, you need options. Right now, we don't get options. That's it. That's the problem.
That's what the slides show, right? Monticello is always on top. It's not like I'm throwing it out. I just say that it suits the backend that we want. Yeah.
I'd like to add another argument to the whole discussion whether Monticello is good or not, whatever, or something else is better. I think we as small talkers know very well what it feels like to be on a version control system that's an island. Because everybody of us had that for 20 years already. I mean, I just mentioned a few names, Store, Envy, Monticello, STS, and they all were far away from the mainstream where everybody else was working. So I think there are some psychological aspects.
Small talks away from the mainstream.
Sure. Okay, so we should drop small.
No, that seems to be your argument. No, that's what,
But
this isn't about intrinsic value, this isn't about work. I'm sorry to be upset. I should just